When I first arrived on Earth, my scales nearly cracked the transport pod as I squeezed my rotund body out. At 450 Earth pounds, I was a disgrace to my proud warrior race, the Krell. Even for a species known for our imposing size and strength, I was a blubbery embarrassment. My face gills were constantly wheezing, my tail dragged behind me, leaving a trail in the dirt, and my battle brothers had taken to calling me Corporal Chub Chub. During training exercises, the Krell medic had warned me, if I didn't get my gluttonous appetite under control, I'd be dead in a dozen cycles, unfit for the glory of battle. I tried every diet and training regimen in the Empire, but nothing could curtail my insatiable hunger. My last resort was a risky organ recalibration surgery, but the anesthesia nearly killed me on the operating table. The final straw came when I was unceremoniously booted from my prestigious post in the Imperial Honor Guard due to my inability to fit into the ceremonial armor. The shame of standing before the disapproving gaze of the Emperor, his snout wrinkling in disgust as he beheld my flabby form bulging obscenely from the too tight plates, was almost too much to bear. I wanted nothing more than to draw my plasma blade and perform the ritual suicide rite of Kagger right there on the obsidian steps of the palace. But even that would have required more physical exertion than my wheezing lungs could handle. Rock Bottom had a new name, and it was Lieutenant Thar. But then, a miracle. My disgraced corpse of a body was to be hurled into the far reaches of space, to serve out my days on a primitive backwater planet called Earth. My new post as a military advisor to the local fauna was little more than a sick joke. A final twist of the blade to condemn me to a humiliating existence among a species barely evolved enough to grasp the concept of indoor plumbing, or so I thought. In reality, the Titans had smiled upon me, for it was among the toxin-guzzling, madness-inducing culinary hellscape of humanity that I would find my salvation. So believe me when I say, coming to Earth, home of the toxin-guzzling humans, literally saved my miserable life. I know, you're thinking, hold up, Earth? That backwater dump populated by the deranged bipeds who will shove literally anything in their mouths on a dare? The crazies who chug fermented plant rot for fun on the weekends, and snort stimulant powder every morning to drag their asses to work? That planet? Yep, the very same mudball. I get the skepticism. After all, humans aren't exactly renowned across the galaxy for their self-preservation instincts or nutritional wisdom. But it was precisely their insane, omnivorous diet that helped me finally overcome my own eating disorder. I was assigned to Earth as a military liaison to help the humans upgrade their pitiful orbital defense systems after they barely gained admittance to the Galactic Council. My commander had warned me it would be a frustrating deployment on a primitive world, but I arrogantly shrugged it off. I'd served in war zones across the nastiest, most inhospitable planets in the Empire. How bad could babysitting a few dumb apes really be? Titan's shriveled ball sack was I in for a rude awakening. See, when they say humans will eat anything, what they really mean is humans will eat anything that will kill anyone else. And I don't just mean in the sense of having to awkwardly navigate a few weird cultural taboos or avoid a couple of strange ingredients. Oh no. I mean, almost every single scrap of food on that poisonous little rock is literal toxic sludge to the rest of the galaxy. Everything on day one. My new human comrades tried to welcome me with a lunch outing to a greasy restaurant serving a bizarre ethnic cuisine called Tex-Mex. The only thing on the laminated menu that wouldn't have immediately sent me into anaphylactic shock was a wilted, plant-based dish called a salad, and even that I had to meticulously pick off the deadly red fruit orbs they called tomatoes. It was only then, as I fruitlessly scanned the ingredients list for anything edible, that the true scope of humanity's freakish digestive adaptability really sank in. Half their fruits contain lethal neurotoxins. They regularly consume the flesh of fungal monstrosities, every variety of which is a biohazard to other races. I tried to procure some simple shellfish for a classic Krell warrior's feast. Nope. Apparently, those bottom-feeding scum suckers secrete a paralytic slime that will lock up your lungs in seconds. I foolishly accepted an invitation to imbibe their liquid intoxicants, only to wake up getting my stomach pumped, since their wine is made from a juice that metabolizes into formaldehyde in non-human guts. They intentionally lace their meals with a vicious, blistering plant called a pepper because they get off on the searing agony on their mucous membranes. I was thrilled to finally try the fabled delicacy known as pizza. My squad wouldn't shut up about, but it was covered in pungent bulbs of a deadly alkaloid called garlic and onion. The gooey white cheese topping also did a number on my intestines, since humans are the only freaks in the universe who still retain the ability to digest lactose into adulthood. I ravenously eyed their burgers, but the buns contained a lethal dose of sesame. Dessert was off the menu too, as their chocolate contains the same psychoactive toxin as their morning stimulant drinks. Even their nutrient paste called peanut butter sent my immune system into panic mode. For the first few weeks, I was marooned on that deceptively lush death trap of a planet. I subsisted on nothing but the blandest greens and a few species of earth fish I recognized from my xenobiology classes. I tried to have some krell rations shipped from the nearest outpost, but it was like flushing my credits down the waste receptacle. The hunger was unbearable. For a species that evolved to consume a third of our body weight each day, the meager Terran fare I could safely digest was like trying to fuel a warship with a single energy cell. My stomach constantly roiled with emptiness, my mighty physique withering away to a pitiful husk as my body consumed itself from the inside out. I began to eye my human companions with a predatory glint, my primal instincts screaming to sink my fangs into their succulent flesh. Galactic Council treaties be damned. In the darkest moments, I even fantasized about snatching one of their wailing infants and swallowing it whole like a Floran cave slug. I knew then that I was losing my mind, but I was powerless to stop my descent into madness. That's when Sergeant Vasquez, the squad's chief mechanic, pulled me aside and made me an offer I couldn't refuse. She said I could bunk in her quarters rent-free, but only if I agreed to be her personal gastronomic guinea pig for whatever culinary abominations she felt like whipping up in the kitchen. Now, you have to understand, for a Krell male, your den is your sanctum, your inner sanctum. Not even our own mates are allowed to breach that barrier outside of the seasonal breeding frenzy. The prospect of allowing an alien to penetrate that sacred domain was unthinkable sacrilege. But I was so desperate for real sustenance at that point, I would have agreed to wear a jester hat and perform a silly dance for her amusement if she demanded it. That crazy, brilliant, blessed female was a gift from the gods. I assumed she would just print me off a list of the handful of ingredients that wouldn't nuke my organs and call it a day. Couldn't have been more wrong. Vasquez treated every recipe like a suicide mission into no man's land. She scrutinized every component like it was an unexploded bomb she had to defuse. She compiled detailed dossiers on the biochemical structures of everything she planned to toss in the skillet. She pored over anatomical diagrams of the Krell digestive system. When in doubt, she even helped me dig through the ancient archives for the old ways my venerable ancestors used to test for poisons in the wild. After the first month of this madness, I jokingly suggested we should start documenting the experience for posterity. Thus was born our video log, Cooking with Sergeant Spice Rack. What started as a goofy diversion for the squad soon went viral. I'd like to claim it was for the sake of advancing interspecies culinary science, but really, the whole thing was such a ridiculous show, we couldn't help but share it with the galaxy. The craziest part of all, amidst the chaos, I could feel my body changing. The pounds began to melt away, like a Hoger ice moon in heat. Not that Vasquez's concoctions were always healthy. The woman had a downright erotic obsession with bacon grease, but something about the ever-present fear of biting into some exotic fruit and experience. Total organ failure had completely killed my urge to mindlessly snack. I no longer had the luxury of grabbing a quick bag of Floran fungus chips at the spaceport, or guzzling a bucket of fluoro syrup. Even on the rare occasions I found some treat I could safely digest, I wound up splurging to have it shipped to Vasquez so she could dissect it, in search of new flavors to play mad scientist with. Never in the Empire had I witnessed such selfless generosity from a comrade for whom I had done so little. I would have cut off my own face gills before betraying that sacred bond over something as inane as junk food. Not every dish we whipped up was a winner, of course. I still shudder at the memory of an ill-conceived Krell-Italian fusion lasagna, involving hog grill testicles and a tomato sauce that was indistinguishable from ship fuel. But by the Titans, it was never boring. We spent the rest of my deployment gleefully sampling the cuisine of every weird little Earth culture, and bastardizing it with ingredients from back home. We even attracted a bit of a following among the interspecies culinary community, who were more than happy to suggest substitutions for things that might liquefy my spleen. But the real revelation was a strange little Earth beverage called tea. Oh sure, it's technically toxic. It is a human drink after all. But something about the cocktail of mild psychoactive compounds dancing across my brain felt strangely soothing, familiar even. The humans have a word for it. Umami, that savory fifth flavor that lingers on the palate and warms you to your core. With a bit of experimentation, I found I could tolerate it in small doses, allowing me to partake in an ancient Earth warrior ritual called a tea ceremony, without spending the night on the latrine floor. The way those crafty little apes have elevated the preparation and consumption of hot leaf juice into an art form never ceases to amaze me. I've made it my mission to sample every variety I can get my claws on. As strange as it sounds, those years on Earth were the best of my life. Vasquez and I forged an unbreakable bond that transcended rank and species. My hatchlings call her Aunt Vas to this day. Together, we embarked on a grand gastronomic odyssey across that insane little planet. From the ruins of Rome, to the neon alleys of Tokyo, to the greasy diners of New York, we slurped down still wriggling tentacles in Seoul and scorpion kebabs in Beijing. I learned more about human culture in a few months than I had in a lifetime of galactic anthropology courses. Everything about them is exaggerated and overstated, from their spicy food to their violent sports, to their booming, gesticulating communication style. Even their starships look like gaudy parade floats. Not a species that is particularly concerned with subtlety or restraint. But then, that's probably what allowed them to turn their toxic little mudball into a galactic power, through sheer stubborn determination. I'm still not sure if I respect them or fear for the universe now that they've been unleashed upon it. The sheer variety of flavors and textures I encountered was staggering. In the lush jungles of South America, I sampled fruits that exploded on the tongue like fireworks, their juices running down my chin as I greedily slurped up every last drop. In the sun-baked deserts of the Middle East, I scooped up mouthfuls of savory stewed meats with spongy flatbreads, the rich spices making my eyes water and my heart race. On the wind-swept steppes of Mongolia, I sipped fermented mare's milk that burned my throat and made the world spin delightfully out of focus. And in the dank alleyways of New Orleans, I sucked the brains out of tiny crustaceans called crawfish, until my lips were numb and tingling. But for all the wild and wonderful sensations I experienced, it was the simple meals shared with Vasquez that I remember most fondly. Huddled around a campfire on some godforsaken ball of rock, swapping war stories and shoveling down heaping spoonfuls of her infamous scream and cream chili, so named for the agonized wails it elicited from anyone brave or foolish enough to consume it. Crowded into a tiny Tokyo apartment, giggling like hatchlings as we fumbled with unfamiliar utensils and nearly choked on the pungent delicacy known as natto. Sprawled on the floor of our cramped ship's bunk, groaning in satisfaction as we gorged ourselves on an entire vat of Vasquez's Abbas Dios Míos tamales, a recipe passed down through generations of her warrior ancestors, the secrets of its preparation guarded more fiercely than any military intelligence. Those were the moments that made me realize what I had been missing all those cycles spent stuffing my face in isolation, numbing my pain with empty calories and fleeting chemical bliss. Food wasn't just fuel. It wasn't just a means of silencing the incessant growling of my stomachs. It was communion, a way to bond with one's comrades, to forge unbreakable ties of loyalty and love through shared suffering and transcendent ecstasy. The humans understood this intuitively, woven as it was into the very fabric of their cultures. Every celebration, every momentous occasion, every gathering of family and friends, all centered around the act of coming together to break bread and raise a glass. And so, when my deployment finally came to an end, I realized I wasn't ready to leave. Somewhere between choking down my first bulbous mushroom and learning to tolerate that vile cilantro spice, Earth had become more than a home away from home. It had become a part of me. So, I did the only thing that made sense. I resigned my commission, pooled my savings with Vasquez, and opened up humanity's first Krell human fusion restaurant in the Earth city of London. We called it the Obese Alien, much to the amusement of our human patrons. To this day, I still get a thrill out of watching some pitiful Krell tourist tentatively nibble a piece of sesame cake, only for their eyes to go wide with disbelief as their taste buds short-circuit from the overload of exotic flavors. As for me, I'm proud to say I've shed nearly half my body weight since that fateful day I nearly split open the shuttle seat. But more importantly, I've gained a profound respect for the insane ingenuity, or perhaps just suicidal recklessness of the human race. No other species in the galaxy could possibly build a culinary culture around lethal poisons and not only survive, but thrive. I may have stepped off that transport pod as a morbidly obese wreck of a warrior, but I left it as a leaner, meaner, spice-tolerating machine. And I owe it all to the crazy toxin junkies of planet Earth. Never in a million cycles would I have imagined that I would one day tearfully embrace a human as a blood brother. But Sergeant Vasquez is no ordinary human. That mad, brilliant, culinary warlock didn't just save my life. She gave me a reason to live it. She taught me that the best way to conquer an enemy is to invite them to the dinner table and slip them a little poison to keep things interesting. So, if there are any Krell warriors out there reading this, heed my words. If your superior officer ever volunteers you for a tour of duty on Earth, don't resist. Don't hesitate. Seize that opportunity like it's the last of the Florin fungus dip. I can't promise it will be easy. I can't promise you won't spend a few long nights locked in the waste disposal pod, praying for the sweet release of death. But I swear on my honor as a proud son of Titan, it will change your life. Earth cuisine isn't just food. It's an adventure. And take it from this old obese alien, an adventure is the only thing in this cosmos worth fighting for. Looking back on it all now, I can hardly believe the twists and turns my life has taken. From a disgraced, morbidly obese pariah to a celebrated culinary ambassador, bridging the gap between two species that could not be more different. I've had the honor of cooking for presidents and princes, warlords and warriors, scientists and scholars. I've been featured in galactic culinary journals and invited to speak at prestigious universities across the cosmos. And yet, no accolade or achievement can compare to the simple joy of watching a customer's face light up as they take their first bite of a dish I've poured my heart and soul into. But I never would have found my true calling, if not for the unwavering support and boundless creativity of my partner in crime, Sergeant Vasquez. That woman is a force of nature, a whirlwind of energy and imagination that never fails to leave me breathless. Even now, decades after our fateful first meeting, she continues to surprise and delight me every day. Just last week, she burst into the restaurant kitchen with a manic gleam in her eye, babbling excitedly about a new recipe she dreamed up involving Krell fire beetle venom and a rare Amazonian chili pepper. I could only shake my head and smile, marveling at the audacity of this tiny, squishy creature who had somehow wormed her way into the very core of my being. In the end, I suppose that's the real lesson Earth has taught me, that the universe is a vast and unpredictable place, full of wonders and horrors beyond our wildest imaginings. That the boundaries between species and cultures are not as immutable as we might believe. That sometimes the greatest threats to our existence can become our greatest allies. And the strangest and most foreign of creatures can burrow into our hearts and become family. And most importantly, that there is no greater power in the cosmos than the love and loyalty of a true friend, a friend who will stand by your side through the worst of times, who will believe in you even when you've lost all faith in yourself, a friend who will cross the stars and brave the unknown, all for the chance to see you smile, a friend like Sergeant Vasquez. So let this be a lesson to all you warriors and wanderers out there, all you restless souls searching for purpose and meaning in the cold, unforgiving void of space. Don't be afraid to let others in. Don't be afraid to open yourself up to new experiences and new ways of being. Embrace the chaos and the uncertainty, the danger and the discomfort, because it is only by pushing ourselves beyond our limits, by venturing outside our cozy little bubbles of familiarity and safety, that we can truly discover what we're made of. And who knows? Maybe you'll be lucky enough to find your own Sergeant Vasquez along the way, a partner to share in your joys and your sorrows, your triumphs and your failures, a friend to remind you of your own strength, even in your darkest moments, a soulmate to make even the most hostile and inhospitable of planets feel like home. The galaxy is a big, crazy, mixed-up place, full of endless possibilities and unimaginable wonders. All you need is a bit of courage, a dash of curiosity, and a healthy appetite for adventure. So go forth, my friends, and seek out the strange and the unfamiliar. Embrace the chaos and the confusion. And above all, never, ever be afraid to take a big, juicy bite out of life. Because in the end, that's what it's all about, isn't it? Living, really living, not just surviving from one day to the next, but thriving, growing, evolving, becoming the best and brightest versions of ourselves, in all our weird and wonderful glory. And if you're really lucky, you might just discover a whole new world of flavors along the way. Trust me, my friends. I may be an obese alien from a distant star, but I know of what I speak, for I have tasted the sweet nectar of human ingenuity, and I will never be the same. Earth changed me, body and soul. It taught me that true strength comes not from rigid discipline and blind obedience, but from adaptability, creativity, and an open mind. It taught me that the greatest adventures are often the ones we least expect, the ones that challenge us and terrify us, and push us to the very limits of our endurance. But most of all, it taught me the true meaning of friendship, of love, of family. And for that, I will be forever grateful. So here's to you, Sergeant Vasquez, my partner, my confidant, my culinary co-conspirator. May our adventures never end, and may our bellies always be full. And to all you brave souls out there, ready to take on the universe, one bite at a time, I salute you. Keep exploring, keep experimenting, keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible, and always, always save room for dessert. After all, you never know when you might stumble across a delicacy that will change your life forever. I should know I'm living proof. The obese alien, signing off.